In our last session, we met 4 of our named characters. Tico, the small Kushiban, a lupine race from the Midrim, Morak, our feral Star Wars Catgirl, Michelina, the strange alien from an extinct race brought to the future by the magic of carbonite freezing, and Joe Fasal, an old Boffin Jedi Master, here by the magic of his holocron and his faith in the Force. But they are not the only characters within our story. A mysterious engineer is imprisoned and needs to be rescued. While the climactic moment of a stormtrooper yelling at our heroes, "Freeze!" seems to be where we should start, we are not going to start at that exact moment. Back inside the prison, a Tashan named Chakeshral, whom we will be calling Kesh, because honestly, such a long name is too long for me to perform every single time it comes up, has been withering over her fate for the last few days. Her childhood was not an easy one, and now it came back with being inside of a cage. She was most unhappy. Within a holding prison like this, waiting for judgment and transport, one has nothing to do. Kesh had nothing to do but focus upon the bars, and her claws let her lash out in anger. You see, Tashar are what you would call a sentient, fully capable of intelligent communication Utahraptor. What I like to call a clever girl. A graduate of Imperial Engineering School, her leg and hand were scarred from bad experiences in experimental ships that she designed, now trapped within a cage. A bang upon the bars of the cage rattles Kesh to see what is going on. It is a stormtrooper and guard. "Hey, knock it off in there!" The stormtrooper. Yes, this story takes a detour for a stormtrooper. An Imperial citizen who volunteered and became ingrained within the Stormtrooper Academy, to the point where they were indoctrinated and actually survived becoming a stormtrooper. Yes, this story requires you meet one. The stormtrooper, Jaina Scavo, rattled against the bars. "What has got you acting so uppity?" Kesh snarls at the stormtrooper savagely, and then regains her composure as she speaks through razor-sharp teeth. "I am stuck in a cage. You would just be as angry if you had nothing to do and were stuck in here." Jaina took a moment to compose herself. From her experience, doctrine said to yell and threaten, but she knew that would do no good. "All right, let's see here." She took her pad and scrolled through it to the prison number. "Chakeshral, you're..." Jaina stopped and did not understand. The prisoner had technically not been to judgment yet. There was no plea entered for her crime, but the prisoner had already been sentenced to 7 years of factory labor, and was due to be picked up in 3 days and taken to the factory prison on Belsavis to make laser components. Kesh, against the bars, looked at Jaina and snapped. "Look, want me to keep quiet? Give me the pad. At least then I can find something to keep my mind off these bars." Jaina looked at Kesh through her stormtrooper visor. It could see the individual emotional complexions that Jaina could not read upon the alien. It highlighted through the complex system if she was telling the truth or not by estimated heart rate, facial expression, eyes, and things stormtroopers were bad at interpreting, scent and inflection. It registered Kesh as being truthful. Jaina reluctantly pressed a few buttons and wiped the pad, created a new user, and handed it over to Kesh. "Here, just keep it down, okay?" Jaina left and prepared for the next shift. They only had 7 prisoners right now, so she was on the shift alone. Her replacement, J2887T1, came on. There was some insistence they would not get to know each other, besides their serial number. As she left the security desk, an Imperial officer greeted her. "Trooper F2776A41M3. I would like to discuss this with you one last time." Jaina rolled her eyes beneath her helmet as the officer insisted upon speaking with her. "Look, you are a female stormtrooper, and I understand posting here on lock is generally a punishment for most Imperial military individuals. It is boring, there is nothing to do, and generally you are isolated from the rest of the galaxy. He was going to go on this tirade again, and Jaina would have to endure it. You do understand if you do not re-up your commitment for another 5 years, you will be released here on lock and left to your own means. Jaina had thought about this a lot. She was convinced life here on lock would at worst have her as a bodyguard for someone she didn't like, or at best getting her off the planet and back to her homeworld in the core systems. Yes, I am. And yes, I am certain I do not wish to offer any recommitment of this time, or for the foreseeable future. The officer sighed and nodded, as the captain made the note. His recommitment quota was not going to be met this month. Very well. In 4 days, you will be released from service. What do I put down as the reason for not recommitting? He pulled out a microphone transmitter from his shirt pocket and offered it to Jaina. I have to record it, as per protocol to prevent my editing the information. Jaina took a moment to compose herself and looked at the officer. Her statement wasn't going to change from the first time she had given it. I've been passed over from promotion twice due to nepotism and general corruption within the officer corps. I am tired of seeing my hard work amount to nothing. Therefore, I am leaving. The captain groaned at the response, and had hoped she would change it, as it would result in an audit of his work. But the computer entered it, and he could not edit it. Very well, Trooper F2776A41M3. The Empire wishes you good luck with wherever you go. He made a note to find some reason to arrest Jaina in his mind, and finished the report. The rest of Jaina's day would pass without incident and much boredom. Even fire training that was still required was boring. Meanwhile, Kesh pored over the documentation to her dismay, but it did give her something to focus on, as she discovered the stormtrooper had logged her into the base and the extranet as a janitor. She would keep the pad hidden any time she heard someone coming down the hall, while trying to figure out there was any way for her to save herself from living on this backwater pirate world. Now, back to our situation. Alarms blaring, a stormtrooper pointing their gun down the hall at 2 unknown aliens that had come from seemingly nowhere, and the entire site on lockdown, preventing any reinforcements to the lone trooper. What's going on down there? I heard someone. The cameras are off and the light aren't letting me shut off the emergency ones. Tico exclaimed as her computer spike gave all sorts of nasty feedback into her pad. Kesh was at the bars, looking at the trooper, then down the hall. What is the meaning of this? Come on, trooper, tell us what is going on, she demanded through a hiss, poking her nose through the bars. Jaina looked at the two down the hall, a kafar with a blaster and blood on her claws, some unknown creature reaching a hand through the bars, and a light echoing from it. She cautiously approached and stared between her quarry and the Rhodian, who was weeping inside the prison cell. As if by some unknown magic, the wound of the Rhodian closed, right before her eyes. Her mind screaming in surprise, as a semblance of training left her, and her blaster lowered. What she was watching was a legend, or a miracle. But sure enough, the ferret-like creature finished, and the Rhodian was calm, breathing, and his wound closed. What? How is that possible? Jaina asked through the stormtrooper intercom as Michelina rose to her feet, and Jaina's weapon hung barely in her grasp, pointed at the floor now. Look, you don't want to die, I assume. You're cut off from your friends, and we aren't here for him. We're here for the engineer, Morak asked as she raised her own blaster cautiously at the stormtrooper. Jaina stepped to the side and looked back where she had come from, when a loud noise of a vent smacking open and the cover clattering to the ground. A small, belly up to her waist with its ears lupine stood there, in a purple skin suit. Sorry, the computer spike burned out. We need to hurry up and go! Morag pushes past the trooper and reaches up, placing a pad against the door trying to get the combination to break the lock. Michelina closes in and looks at Kesh between the bars. Hello there. I assume you are the engineer? Kesh backed away from the bars in shock and dropped her pad onto the floor outside. She was certain these individuals were here to kill her. Tico spoke up. Look, you can come with us and live, or... Tico picked up the pad and let out a sharp whistle. Or you can spend 6 years in hard labor. Ouch! You know, why don't you come with us and live? There wasn't much of a debate now in Kesh's mind, as Jaina walked up and offered a key. Look, whoever you are, that spike won't get you in. The whole system is on lockdown. You can get her out if you take me with you. Morag hesitated. Michelina, not exactly knowing what a stormtrooper was, looked confused. Tico judged the alarms and how long they had. She jumped up and grabbed the key. Deal! As if by no one else's action, the decision was made. Their fate was now sealed together as Tico unlocked Kesh's cell. Follow them into the garbage chute. The furnace is off. Just hurry up and get out. I'm going to let the rest of the prisoners out. The group hurried and one by one jumped to their stinky escape, while Tico released all the prison cells, followed them and locked the chute behind them. In the chaos, the Empire would need to put down a prison riot to figure out what had happened. They made for the Wasati through the alleyways, through back roads, and in the narrow spaces between buildings, all back to the ship, panting, huffing for breath, but safe, sound, and with no one knowing how they got away, except for the prisoners who were now lying stunned and unconscious on the floor from the effort to retake the prison block. Tico stands outside the ship with a data spike and hands it to Jaina. Okay, this is your chance. We'll be watching you, but Kesh says she needs her suit to help her walk with that scarred leg and help her work with the damage to her hand. So this is a set of falsified orders. It should pass most muster. Go in, get a suit and equipment, then come back here. If you want off this planet and want us to believe your story about leaving the Stormtrooper Corps, then... Tico pushed the data spike into the Stormtrooper's armored hand. This is the last time you will have to pretend to be a Stormtrooper. Jaina was still unsure. She did not know how to interpret what she had witnessed in the prison. Or how. But she nodded to the smaller creature. Tico would follow Jaina back to the impound warehouse and carefully watch what was happening. While she couldn't hear the words, she could at least understand the body language. First Lieutenant German was supposed to take his break, but he saw this stormtrooper walking towards his guardhouse, alone, but with purpose. He let out a groan and waited as the trooper approached. F2776A41M3 reporting. I was instructed to retrieve prisoner material for prisoner Chikeshral's judgment officer. Jaina passed the data spike over to the officer, who put it into his computer. The orders coming up on screen, but there was some disconnection issue, as the console attempted to dial the central command. Tico, for her part, had ensured the data spike would make dialing out while it was in impossible. Trooper, just give me a moment. System seems to be going slow. Jaina was nervous as she stood to and waited, but she did take a moment to tease the lieutenant to see if he would relax. Hey, it's made by the lowest bidder. What can we expect? German smiled at that comment and looked at the trooper. He couldn't see much under the helmet, but imagined she was smiling. You know, you're right. His guard was let down by the fact it was a female stormtrooper, and the idea that maybe he would see her again filled his head. Hey, listen, I'm supposed to go on break, so if you want to just go in and get it, I'm sure your orders will check out once the tech figures out the connection issue. So in and out before I finish my smoke, and I never checked your orders. Deal? German replied, getting a death stick out of his pocket and looking for his lighter. Jaina smiled and broadened at her luck. The usual corruption and nepotism that made her leave the Empire was helping her get away from it. She pulled out a lighter from her belt. While she didn't smoke, having a lighter was a good way to get others to relax around her. "Allow me." She lit him and gave a salute before walking in. Within moments, she had the detention lockbox and was leaving, checking inside to ensure the suit was for Tashar and the toolbox was something special, with all the extra parts it contained. Tico met her outside the ship, both surprised and still wondering if this was a sleeper agent or a genuine betrayal. "All right, fine, you're in, but I've got my eye on you." Just like that, somehow what should have been a smash and grab for one person had turned into two.